My first thought when I found out I was pregnant was, oh no, what are my parents going to say about their kid being a teenage mom? I knew this was going to affect my life in all ways imaginable. I knew that I needed to finish high school in order to get a job. I knew that in order to get a good job and make enough money that I needed to support us, that I probably would need to go to college. But I also realized that graduating from high school and having a part-time job was going to be a big feat, being a teenage mom, let alone going to college. I knew that was going to be very questionable, and expected for the next 10 years to be in a vicious circle of trying to earn enough money to support me and my child. I sought help through visiting nurses, a visiting nurse company that showed up to help me learn how to care for a newborn and care for myself as a mom and pretty much as an adult. My parents also helped me find funding for daycare. Their biggest stipulation was that I graduated high school and didn't become a dropout. So my parents were able to find funding to extend an adult education daycare that was located on the school campus from just the hours of 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. to actually extend them to the hours of 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Friday, so I could finish school. No, I never really thought about being a teenage mom at all. I think this happened so fast that before I really even had any time to figure out what I wanted to be, when I became an adult, I had already gotten pregnant. People were unusually easy in accepting. Prior to Amber being born, I remember being really scared about what my high school teachers were going to say and how they were going to treat me, seeing me big and round and pregnant. They were very accepting and supportive, much to my surprise. I didn't really have any problems in school after Amber was born, but I definitely made a decision to move from a bad crowd to a good crowd to hang out with, because I definitely needed to make some big life changes. Going to school pregnant was weird. I was tired, but I knew that I had to see it through. I knew that I had to finish and graduate. My parents were counting on it. But I had some really supportive friends. My best friend, Christy, would ask her mom if I could come over and spend the night, and she would say, "Mom, can Shannon come over?" And I'd hear her mom, Betty, yell, "Yes." And then Christy would yell to her mom again, "Mom, can Amber come over and spend the night too?" And Betty would yell back, "That baby's not going to cry all night, is she?" And Christy would reassure her mom, and it was neat. I still got to go spend the night at my best friend's house like a normal teenager would. I never felt like giving up. By the time I was 19 and really started to realize what I had missed growing up, I had already had 2 children. But through high school and right after Amber was born, through the end of high school, I was never thinking about giving up. I just wanted to see it through and have the most normal high school career as just like everyone else. The hardest thing about being a teenage mom was not knowing what I was doing. I was constantly worried whether or not I was doing the right thing for Amber. Was she in a safe environment? She was always around teenagers, my friends, and I was always worried about the things or conversations she might pick up on, and also worried about providing the things for Amber that she needed, right down to basic diapers and food and clothing. The funnest thing about being a teenage parent was definitely the things that Amber would say. her different pronunciation of words when she was just picking up on things, and also living out my life through her activities that I never partook in, such as soccer and, just simple things like watching her grow and watching her realize, how the world works and how different items worked in that world. I feel like overall this was definitely a beneficial thing to happen to me. I was on a bad path hanging out with other teenagers that were always in trouble. And once I had Amber, I realized that I needed to take care of myself and I needed to be on the right path in order to provide for her. So I started pulling away from the bad relationships and creating strong and healthy ones for the future. If I were to meet a teenage mother now, the advice that I would give them would be very different than the advice that I did give teenage mothers back then. When I was a senior in high school and Amber was about 1.5, there were several other girls in the school that became pregnant. The principal would ask me to talk to these girls and explain to them how tough my life is with the decision that I made. And the principal would then leave us alone in her office to talk. And once the principal was gone, I encouraged these girls to do what they want. If they really wanted to be parents, they could do it, and I believed I could do it, and I had been doing it. So I really encouraged them to, do what they wanted to do with that pregnancy, whether they wanted to have the baby, put the baby up for adoption, or even have an abortion. Now, being a mom of a teenage girl, I feel like my advice to a teenage parent would be a lot different. I know and I realize the things that I missed out on having to be so responsible at a young age. And I realized that if I had not been a teenage parent, my life might have been worse, or I might have made very different decisions and actually had become a college graduate. So I would have to say that at this point, I wouldn't necessarily tell a teenager that she shouldn't have the child, but I think that I would be more realistic about what I had to give up in order to raise a child as a teenager.